I'm going to start off with a Frank Sinatra song. I'm just kidding. Good evening. So my name is Jim Patterson. I'm the Executive Director of Project Operations at Ericsson. And I'm here to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do, and why project management is important in our organization, and how it impacts the work that we do for our customer, AT&T. So a little bit about who we are. So Ericsson provides communication networks. This is the infrastructure that supports our 2G and 3G networks, and now the new 4G LTE network. This includes all of the radio equipment that's at the cell sites and all of the core switching systems that's back at the central office. We also provide services. We do network designs, we do installation and integration of equipment and systems. We do optimization and RF tuning, and we do monitoring of the network to ensure that the network is behaving as expected. And finally, we provide enablers to multimedia. So this is the software-based solutions for real-time and on-demand TV. And this also includes mobile TV applications, and everybody probably has heard of the U-verse, AT&T U-verse as well. So a little bit about our company. Some short facts. So we were founded in 1876 in Stockholm, Sweden. This is our headquarters, and it's a great place to visit in summer, unless you have a very thick coat. We employ over 90,000 people worldwide, and we're a $28+ billion company. A couple other facts that is worth mentioning here. One is that we serve customers in over 175 countries worldwide, and more than 40% of the world's mobile traffic pass through our networks. We're very proud of that. And we have two joint ventures. One is with Sony, and the other one is with ST Microelectronics. The Sony Ericsson name brand focuses on mobile handsets, and the ST Ericsson name brand focuses on semiconductors. So what is Ericsson's prime driver? Very simply put, three things. We want broadband everywhere, both fixed and mobile. We want affordable communications for everybody, and we want to get everything connected. Imagine if you didn't have internet service at your home, or if I grabbed your smartphone or your BlackBerry away for a week. It would be like taking away your oxygen, wouldn't it? We really depend on communications nowadays. It changes the way we live. It changes the way we work, how we communicate, how our children learn at school. Communication has truly changed the lives. And the last bullet here says all things connected. And it doesn't say all people connected. It says all things. And this will lead me to my next slide. So Ericsson has a vision that by 2020, there will be 50 billion devices connected. So it's not just about connecting people to people, but it's going to be, in the future, connecting machines to machines and devices to devices. Imagine the impact that we could have on transportation and the financial systems and healthcare, for example, such as remote patient monitoring. Truly, the sky's the limit. And now let's talk about my favorite subject, project management. So we have over 650 project managers in North America, of which 60% are PMP certified. I think the number now is closer to 65%. Today, when we manage our communication networks, over the years, you look at evolution, and these networks have gotten very much more complex. So when you look over time, the equipment of these systems have gotten smaller. The cost has come down, but one thing that's gone up is the complexity. So today is not just about being certified. We must go beyond that. So certification gives us the foundation, but we must drive the project management discipline within our organizations at all levels, and we must make the commitment and the financial commitments from a company. At Ericsson, project governance is part of our DNA. This is what allows us to deliver our products and our services to our customer, AT&T, with on-time delivery, with lower costs, and with higher quality. And I'm happy to say that the very first 5 AT&T markets, which will be launching 4G, are all Ericsson markets. And we're able to do that. Yes, I'm very proud of that too. We worked very hard for that. And I'm happy to say that the reason why we are able to deliver this for our customer is because of the strong project management discipline, the strong project management governance that we instill in each and every project manager and each and every project that we execute each and every day. And with that, I will say thank you to the PMI Atlanta chapter for allowing us to speak. And I must say it's a true honor and privilege today to speak in the presence of Mr. Ralph de la Vega, who represents one of our largest and most significant customer in the world. On behalf of all of Ericsson, thank you very much.
How's everybody doing? Boy, what a good-looking group. Mike, thank you for that fine introduction. I really appreciate the invite here. When I first took this assignment on, my assistant asked me why did I commit to doing one more speaking engagement, and I told her it's because I ran into Karen Jackson in the elevator, and she said I couldn't get off the elevator until I agreed to come here and speak to you. So here I am. A good project manager is relentless, right? That's what she is. But look, I applaud you for being here tonight. I think that when you take your personal time to come here, pay your own way, to listen to speakers and to broaden your personal background and experience, that's commendable because I think every one of us has to do that. So congratulations to PMI for bringing all of you together here in what looks to be a fantastic evening. You know, what I'd like to do tonight is very straightforward. Karen asked me to share a little bit about my personal story. It's a story about overcoming adversity and incredible odds, something that I think you guys probably do every day in your jobs. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's helped me succeed to be the Chief Executive Officer of AT&T Mobility and Consumer Markets. And I'm going to then finally end with give you some personal tips about what I think it takes to be the best person you can be and how you can succeed in your own careers. Sounds good enough? Okay. I'm going to do this with 2 pictures and 2 charts. Okay? We'll see if I can make it simple. First, I want to tell you a little bit about my personal story, and the picture you see there is of my family. That's taken back in the late 1950s in Cuba. And what you see here is a picture of my mom holding my younger sister, Barbara, my dad in the background, and I'm the kid eating the ice cream cone, showing you that great physique. My sister hates this picture. She absolutely hates it. She's got no hair. I'm sure the women here could probably relate to it, but she's a great-looking young woman right now. And everything for us in Cuba was just ideal when this picture was taken. We were vacationing at the beach. My dad had a very successful business that he was running, and we had a nice home, everything you could ask. It was like great living for us. And then the Cuban Revolution of 1959 took place, and it was really chaotic. It turned our lives upside down. The changes that we saw came quickly, and they hit very hard for our family, a family that had a strong work ethic, traditional values, and religious faith. It was like if our world had been turned upside down. My family lived every day in a constant state of fear and anxiety. You could be arrested for the slightest provocation or just a suspicion. The freedom that we had come to know was gone, replaced with intimidation and confiscation of property. Food distribution was taken over by the government. So my father's business, which was food distribution, was gone. It was nationalized by the government. And my parents made what we thought was the most difficult decision of our lives at the time, which is to leave Cuba, to come to that beacon of hope and opportunity and freedom that is the United States of America. Now, before you left Cuba, you had to give everything you owned to the government. You could not leave it to your family. So if you had a house, it was turned over to the government. If you had a car, it was turned over to the government. Savings account to the government. Clothes to the government. Paintings, everything. They would come and do an inventory of your house, and before you left, everything in there, except essentially the clothes on your back, had to be in the house or you couldn't leave. So my parents made the difficult decision to actually leave, and when our papers were supposedly in order, we headed to the Havana airport in July of 1962. You can imagine saying goodbye to all your family. My parents had no relatives in the U.S. Just think about that. We had no relatives here. They were coming to a foreign country, didn't speak the language, and yet they were willing to leave everything behind to come and set foot on the great U.S. of A. And we thought that was the toughest decision they'd ever have to make until we got to the airport and the militiamen that looked at our papers said 5 words that changed my life and my family's life forever. 5 words that changed our lives forever. And those words were, only the boy can go. So they had looked at our papers. Only mine were correct. The plane was about ready to take off. And my parents had to make a real difficult decision. Do you send Ralph ahead to the U.S. or do you keep the whole family behind? I can't tell you how difficult that was for them. For me, I look back and I have 2 sons. I'm sure many of you have sons and daughters. Think about them, 10 years old at the time. The plane is running. You have to make a decision. My dad started making frantic calls to the U.S. to see if they could reach some friends. So they reached some friends, and he said, Ralph, we're going to send you ahead. He said, don't worry. It's going to be like a sleepover. I said, well, Dad, sure. I got on the airplane. They closed the doors. And I would not see my parents again for 4 years. So I found myself in a new country, with a new family, with a new language, with a new culture. And I tell people I didn't even like the food then. See, in Cuba, we had a kind of different food at the time. And when I first got here, the first meal they gave me was a cold glass of milk and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We didn't eat those things in Cuba. Our milk was warm with chocolate and sugar and peanut butter. No, we had, pork and ham, and we didn't have peanut butter and jelly. So I refused to eat it, but the family who took us in were recent immigrants, and that's all they had to eat. So eventually, later that evening, I went ahead and ate it. And I like milk, but I still don't like peanut butter. Let me see if I can actually show you here. That's a picture, a school picture of me when I got here, about 10 years old. And you can imagine I was with a family that were also recent immigrants. They had gotten here 5 months before I did in the same boat. It was a young family. They didn't have any children, so they agreed to look after me. And it turns out they became my second set of parents, living with them for 4 years. You can imagine from 10 to 14, that's a pretty impressionable young age. And I lucked out. See, the Baez family that took me in were serial entrepreneurs. And just like many immigrants have done before and continue to do in the U.S., they reinvented themselves and their lives by starting businesses and growing businesses and setting up their factories and their showrooms. And they lived what in their eyes were the American dream. So I really became a very lucky person that I was one of the ones that the Baez family took me in. So now let me fast forward to high school. There was another critical point in my life, and that's why I believe so strongly in education. You see, when I went to my high school counselor and told him that my dream was to be an engineer, he looked at my grades and he looked at my family's finances. We had none. And he said, son, you should study to be a mechanic instead. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a mechanic, but that was not my dream. I'm in a foreign country. My parents just got here. They have no money. So I listened to that counselor and I stopped going to regular high school classes and started studying to become a mechanic. I was going to be the best mechanic I could be. But that's what the man told me. Until my grandmother arrived from Cuba. She's a spunky grandmother, I'm telling you. You know, back in Cuba, she had been a teacher, a poet, and a mother to 7 children. So she had seen it all. And she knew what it meant to have a formal education and also the danger of not having one. So when I met Grandma in the U.S., she says, well, fine, how are you doing, Ralph? And what are you doing? I says, well, I'm studying to be a mechanic, but I really would like to be an engineer, Grandma. Then she said some words that I've never forgotten. She said, you know, Ralph, that doesn't make any sense. She said, if you want to be an engineer, you can be an engineer. Never let anyone put limitations on what you can achieve. I listened to my grandma. You know what I did with that counselor's advice? Control, Alt, Delete. And the rest is history. And I really do believe that learning early on, that's what I tell people, is don't let anybody put limitations on what you can achieve, what your children can achieve, what your organization can achieve, what your company can achieve. Because the minute you do, then you're living by somebody else's dream, by not yours. And mine got awful close to getting not even considered just because I listened to somebody who actually had my best interest at heart. He just underestimated what I could do. I knew I could do it, so as soon as my grandma gave me the inspiration, I said, I'm there. So when people ask me, Ralph, how difficult was it to merge Cingular Wireless and AT&T Wireless in a $41 billion all-cash merger back in 2004? I said, heck, that's easy. Hard is leaving your country, leaving your family, leaving your language, and starting over again. So we believe that part of learning, part of growing is you have to learn how to get out of your comfort zone. And I got out of my comfort zone real early at the age of 10. But I've looked back and I said, I would not change a thing. I would not change a thing of what happened to me because it made me strong. It made me the person that I am, and it made me totally unafraid to face any other challenge that I've ever faced in my life. That time was so difficult. I think part of what I learned early on was that you have to be able to take risks. My parents took a huge risk. But you have to have a plan. You have to do it with a plan, and I'll get into that in just a minute. And you have to be willing to sacrifice. I've never been involved in anything that was really worthwhile that didn't require some personal sacrifice, somebody that went over and above. And if you're lucky, that happens to you in a great country. So you see, I think it has to be a great country that allows a 10-year-old boy to reach its shores without his family, without any money, without speaking the language. And that's addressing you today as the President and CEO of AT&T Mobility, a $50 billion company with nearly 100 million customers. It has to be a great country, ladies and gentlemen. As part of my job, I give a lot of speeches. And part of what I get asked is, well, how did you do this? I mean, is there a formula to do this? And I don't know that I can tell you that there is one formula because success is different in everybody's image. But what I like to do is share with you the things that I have found that have worked for me domestically, internationally, in Georgia, in Texas, in Chicago, everywhere I have worked, and to give you some sense of what that is all about. So this will be the first of 2 charts. And actually, this is the first one right here. If you look at this picture, it looks like a house. And I look at the roof and tell people that if you begin there, I'll talk you through it. But I believe that anybody, in terms of looking for success, has to dream big and has to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. And what I often find is that people don't dream big enough. They always fall a little bit short of what they could do. Most often, people don't dream big enough. But even if you did, even if you had a great dream, maybe that's not enough. You know, I had a high school youngster that spent time in my office as part of a job shadow event, and I asked him what he wanted to do, and he says, "I want your job." I said, "Okay, you've completed the first part. You're dreaming big now." He had me going, and he believed in himself that he could do it, so he was past the roof. But I said, and this is where you and what you do comes into play, but just dreaming is not enough. Hoping that you're going to achieve your dreams is not a good strategy. In my experience, even if you have a great dream, you have to develop a winning game plan. You have to have a plan for how you get there, and you have to be willing to change that plan and adapt as you see the situations change. I've never been able to do a plan that I've been able to stick in a drawer and say, you know, that plan worked out exactly like we designed it. It never, ever happens. And the key to successfully executing a plan is when you reach those obstacles, what do? Can you adjust and still get to your goal, or do you lose sight of the mission and totally fail? So that's the first of 4 pillars of success that I like to use, is you have to develop a winning game plan, a plan that helps you to succeed in whatever it is that your dream, that your mission, that your vision is. But even if you have a great dream, and even if you have a great winning plan, I guarantee you, you're going to need to take risk, calculable risk, in order to achieve that. I have never done something that was really worthwhile and meaningful in my life and in my career that didn't involve risk. And I would say, if you're feeling like you're comfortable, that it's not risky, then my message to you is you're not pushing yourself hard enough, you're not pushing your organization hard enough, you're not pushing your company hard enough. I've learned the most in my career when I've been pushed to the limit that I didn't know what was going to happen, that we were pioneers in an area, but I knew that we were learning so much that it was going to help us to succeed in the future. Same thing personally. That's why I commend you for being here tonight and furthering your personal education. I've tried to do that everywhere I could in my own personal life. The third one is overcoming obstacles, persistence. This is the Karen Jackson syndrome, right? I am going to get this man to show up here, even if it means that I'm not going to let him off this elevator. But as soon as you have a plan, you're going to get obstacles, right? They happen to you every day. And the question is, in face of those obstacles, do you give up when they're big? Or do you continue to press and continue to press? The good project managers, in my view, get it done. And it's always hard, but they get it done. So that's a very key obstacle. And then the last one is even more key than that one. That is to be able to recognize opportunities. What I find is that people have opportunities all around them. They're all around you, and you never see them. And you never see them. You know why? Because they're disguised as problems. The best opportunities are disguised as really hard problems. You know, when Mike introduced me, he mentioned that I was running our operations in Latin America. And when I got that call to take that job, and it was announced that I took the job, my best friends called me and said, "Are you crazy? You know, going to Latin America, that place is a mess. It's got all these problems, currency fluctuations, you know, regimes that are getting overthrown. Why do you do this? It's full of problems." I said, "No, it's full of opportunities. It's full of opportunities." What better opportunity to learn about the business than going out there and doing it in the toughest place you could ever do it? And if I could succeed there, I could succeed anywhere. So I did. And after I did that, they sent me to Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana. And I loved it. I loved it. It's great people in those 3 states. They did have a problem pronouncing De La Vega sometimes, but it was good. Now let me talk about values for a little bit, because I gave you the kind of the framework for success, but I want to talk a little bit about the principles that are underneath. And if you could view these as the foundation of the house, such that your dreams will crumble, your pillars of success will crumble if you're not building your house on these. These are my 6 principles that are needed as the foundation for any leader. Now, these are my 6. You could have a different 6. I would say, though, that if you don't have a couple of these in your in your own eyes, then maybe there's something wrong. So, but I like to look at it from the point of view of this pyramid, because I think I like to begin at the bottom of the pyramid and work up. And when people ask me, Ralph, what do you look for in a leader? My answer may surprise you. Some people say, well, why don't you want the smartest person? Why don't you get the best educated person, the most experienced person? I said, I want first and foremost a person of integrity. Integrity, without integrity, you cannot be a leader. And if you do lead, you're going to lead people the wrong way. So the first thing that I look for, no matter where I work, is I want to be associated with people that have integrity. That no matter how difficult the situation is, that you will hold true to yourself and you will do what is right. I was just asked to endorse a book by Lee Ellis, who's a former prisoner of war. And he says in his book that that's one of the key things that helped him through the prisoner of war camp, is being able to hold on to your integrity when people were asking you to do things that were incredibly difficult, torturing you, that you held on to your integrity. And guess what? Your fellow prisoners knew if you were saying things that you shouldn't be saying as a prisoner of war. Same thing goes in a corporation. Credibility to me is doing what you said you're going to do. You're a project manager. You said you're going to turn that project on time, on budget. That's credibility. If you're late and you miss budget and you do it on project after project, guess what you get? You get a brand association that maybe you're not a really good project manager. I think those two are in my view, the basic criteria. The other four, maybe you could have a different four. But I sure as heck never want to be associated with a leader that doesn't have integrity and credibility, do you? To me, they're basic and fundamental. But above that attitude, it's a huge force multiplier. When you get people with the right attitude, that the right people that have a common vision, that are driven by a common set of goals, that have a plan, that they can execute, magic happens. I've seen it happen to me domestically, internationally, every place I have been. Attitude is really important for people to succeed. Teamwork. Business is not an individual sport. Maybe you're in an individual sport business, but that's not my business. Usually things have to get done by teams, and I look for people that are good team players and are willing to sacrifice self for the good of the team. That's really hard to find sometimes. But if you get them, they're absolutely wonderful. Excellence. In my business, just like Ericsson's business, you have to get up every day and look for a better way of what you were doing than you did yesterday, than you did 3 months ago, than you did 6 years ago. If we were running our company with the same tools and techniques we were running it 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, we would be in real trouble because things change so fast. You look for people that actually can help you to achieve that excellence. Finally, vision. Not only just to understand the company's vision, but to be able to articulate it and to get others to understand it. That's what I look for in leaders. People that can help others come about. So those are the two simple charts that I would want to leave with you in terms of my thoughts. But I thought I would add one last item before we close and take your questions. A lot of people ask me, well, what does it take to succeed in a company or in an organization? How can I get ahead? What are the things that I need to do? And the thing that I talk about in the book is get rid of the yes buts. Yeah, get rid of the yes buts. You guys are doing that, aren't you? You know what the yes buts are? Well, Sue is a great project manager, but she doesn't have any field experience. Joe is a great accountant, but he's never supervised people. There's always a but when you look to promote. And I do that. We spend a lot of time at AT&T on succession planning. So you hear a lot of yes, but sometimes. Yes, this person is a network person, but they've never been in sales. So how could they be a CEO candidate? You get the message? You get the drift? I'll tell you one of my earliest yes, buts. And these yes, buts, if you're really true and honest to yourself, you will acknowledge what they are. I don't have to tell you. You know, if you work in a certain company, what those are. When I decided to be more than an engineer, I knew myself that I needed to improve my public speaking skills. As an engineer, when I went through school, they taught me all about physics and differential equations and all kinds of, they never taught me how to go out and do public speaking. So I was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Terrified to talk to people. So I said, what can I do? And I became part of the company speakers bureau. And at night, I would go and I would talk to anybody who would listen to me. I gave a talk once on fiber optics to a bridge club. And I said, if you're willing to listen, I am willing to talk. But it made me a better person. I knew that that was something that I needed to work on. And I committed myself to be a lot better at that situation. You may have similar things, but you have to acknowledge them. I tell you, there's so many people that sometimes come into my office and they may go, well, Ralph, I'd like to get promoted. I said, okay, but I see you don't have a college degree. You know, I think when you get compared to others, that's going to be a yes, but. So get your college degree. Sometimes they get them, and sometimes, you know, they'll come back 6 months later and I go, well, are you taking a course? Have you enrolled? No, I'm too busy. Well, then this is not as important to you in your life. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying if you're asking me my opinion, I'm giving it to you. By the same token, I had a young person, a technician, that I saw working in one of our work centers. And this guy was really bright. He was really articulate. He was an entry-level technician. And actually, I wanted to promote that person to a first-level supervisor. When I gave the paperwork to my supervisor at the time, he rejected promoting this young person. And I said, why? And he said, he talks too much. And I go, but he's saying the right things. And he said, yes, but he doesn't have a college degree. And I said, okay, you got me there. So I went back and I said, you know, you have a young family. In this company, you're only going to go so far. You're going to be a good technician. You're really good. But you got to get your college degree. So, you know, to his credit, he went back to get his college degree. And not only did he get an undergraduate, he got a master's. That technician's now an executive director working for AT&T. And I didn't have anything to do with it. He did it all himself. So it works. If you can remove the yes buts, it gives you an opportunity to achieve things that maybe are part of your dreams. In closing, I just want to thank Karen and Mike for inviting me here tonight. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be able to address you. Jim, thank you for Ericsson supporting us tonight. You guys do a lot of good work for us, and it always can be better, as I said, right? They do great work, no kidding. There's a reason why they're the providers in those 5 markets, but we always press them to be better. And I think what I hope that I've left with you is that no matter what adversities you face in life, no matter what adversities you face in life, always feel like you can overcome them. Don't run away from them. Don't run away from them. Run to them, take them on, win. They'll make you a better person. The human spirit is incredibly resilient. You can do incredible things if only you let people not put limitations on what you can achieve, including yourself. Including yourself. So, dream big, have a plan, take risks, overcome obstacles, and seize the opportunities that are always in front of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. That was awesome. So now we're going to have a brief Q&A.
I think we can take questions, live questions, or we can take questions from here as well, no?
Yeah,
Just,
we have
okay.
cards.
Okay, you have cards? Okay.
They wrote them down. So I'll give you a few of the questions. Maybe we can turn off the front projector. The first question is, how do you utilize your corporate PMO?
you know, at my level, I require other people to show me their plans. And, you know, a network, the organization you're a part of, does it every month. Every month we get the charts that show us what is supposed to be done in production, the production charts that Bill Hogue, your boss, looks at. We look at them at our meetings every month. We look at them at our board of directors. We actually show them to our board of directors, showing on special projects like the one that Ericsson is working on, which is an incredibly complex undertaking, building a 4G network for the entire country. That means that we actually have to replace the equipment in every one of the cell sites in our network, which is over 50,000 right now. New antennas, new backhaul, new switching, new core. It's like if we're building a brand new network from scratch, and we have to do it much faster than anybody would want, but that's what the market demands. So we keep up with those at every one of our chairman's meetings, and including the board of directors meetings.
Well, this might give you a chance to tell a story from your past. And how does managing projects in the U.S. differ from managing them in Latin America?
Oh, boy. You know, Latin America was such a wild, wild west situation that I have to explain it to you, otherwise you probably wouldn't believe me. But let me give you a quick snapshot of what I faced when I took the job that my friend said I shouldn't take. So I took the job. As soon as I became president, there was a depression in Latin America. This was in 2002. Argentina, which was the biggest country that we had 5 presidents in 5 weeks. There was chaos. And the Argentine peso, which was pegged 1-to-1 with the dollar, so an Argentine peso was the equal of $1, became 25 cents compared to the dollar. So it devalued 4-to-1. And so I was running a $1 billion company in Argentina that overnight became a $250 million company. That hurts the business plan for that year. You talk about gap, that's a really big gap. In addition, we were getting our equipment, which we had to pay for in dollars, we were getting paid in devalued pesos. So it was a recipe for bankruptcy if we kept doing it. Venezuela was the most profitable country we had. In Venezuela, there was a coup attempt. Hugo Chavez was thrown out of office. They replaced him with a Chamber of Commerce president. On the first day in office, he abolished the Supreme Court and the Constitution. The next day, they brought Chavez back. After that, the businesses countrywide went on strike. The businesses went on strike. Banks closed, shopping centers closed, gas stations closed. Everything that you needed to run a modern-day cellular network stopped working, including gasoline. No gasoline to drive anywhere. It was incredible. In Brazil, our partner in Brazil defaulted on a $375 million payment on a $1 billion loan. So the company went into default on a $1 billion loan. The first time any one of our companies had ever defaulted, when I asked for who can help me with this, there was nobody. We had never done that. And then in Colombia, the rebels were blowing up our cell sites. Other than that, it was business as usual. So you had to really think on your feet. And I'll give you some of the things that we did just so you understand why it was different. So in Argentina, when the peso devalued, we had to raise prices. Of course, they're devalued 4-to-1. As soon as we raised prices, nobody would buy. And so the sales went to zero. Imagine running a sales organization of a $1 billion company. Sales went to zero. So we had to tell all of our salespeople, I was there when we did it in Buenos Aires, a room like this. I said, guys, our sales have gone dry, but there's a lot of people that owe us money, so we need you to be collection agents. That was not their preferred job assignment. But you know what? We told them why, we explained to them why, and they did it. And after the crisis, we were more profitable in Argentina than before. In Venezuela, where we ran out of gas, we used to have parts for our cell sites in a central distribution warehouse. And when one broke down, we would drive the part over to the cell site. Well, there was no gas. So when cell sites started breaking down, we couldn't get them the parts. So we had to take the central distribution warehouse, and we actually had to take the parts and put them in key employees' homes, technicians, and then the employees would bicycle them over to the cell sites. when they needed repair. Those are just some of the things that we had to do. And in Colombia, when the rebels blew up the radio towers, after a while we realized, hey, they're using them too, so if you blow the next one, we're not replacing it. And we put that word out, and they got the message. So they stopped blowing them up because we stopped replacing them. Anyway, so you have to do some things in some of those countries that are a little bit unorthodox. But that's the fun, I think, of being a leader, being a manager, being an executive is you're out there on the leading edge. You're bleeding edge sometimes, but it really made me a better person, a better leader by having spent that time, which is part of the message that I was trying to communicate.
Well, that was a terrible question. Now, how am I ever going to give him an excuse for why we didn't get a project done? There are several questions that all kind of involve the same topic, and it's about how do you see the future of the wireless industry, the future of wireless payments?
The wireless industry is one of the most dynamic industries in the world. I mean, I love this industry because it changes so much. The technology changes, the competition changes, the regulatory rules change. You have to really be on your game to stay on top. And what is happening with communications is just nothing short of breathtaking. It used to be that we would sell you phones that you could use to talk. Those phones are now little computers that are portable, that have broadband, that also happen, you can talk, but you can do a whole lot of other things. And so now with the network that we're building, that Ericsson is helping us build, you're going to be able to get this fourth generation technology nearly to 97% of the country with download speeds of 5 to 12 megabits per second. I mean, that is absolutely unbelievable. But what is happening is that, like some of you have said before, this technology is going in things other than phones. This thing is going in e-readers. They're going in personal navigation devices. And the biggest thing yet to come, which you may or may not have seen, is these things will actually be on dog collars. They'll be on pill bottles. We actually have them on beers of keg. Or kegs of beer, I should say. You can tell I haven't had one, right? But we actually can trace kegs of beer from Germany to the U.S. for this company that looks at their GPS position and the temperature inside those kegs so that they can be assured that when they get to where they're supposed to go, they have the right quality. So they can measure where they are and the temperature. What's going to happen next, the next big thing, will be payments and medicine. We now have things that are called wearables that you're going to be able to wear. And those things will monitor your vital signs. It'll be like an undershirt, a t-shirt. Just think about it, that you'll be able to wear it. They're actually using some of that technology in the NFL Combine today, where they actually test players to see how fast they run, how high they jump. Think about if you had a wearable that actually you could put in a baby that will be able to monitor that baby at night and make sure that the minute anything goes wrong, the parents are alerted, and they're alerted in their smartphone sitting next to their bed. So what is happening with that is incredible. And then with payments, I would say in the next 5 to 10 years, you're not going to need a wallet anymore. Why? What you have in the wallet typically are plastic cards and things. Your phone will be your ID. You will have a cash card. You will have a debit card. You will have a credit card. You will have a loyalty card. You will have everything you need in that phone. It'll be more secure on the phone than it'll be on that piece of plastic in your wallet. So I think what you're going to see is being able to pay for MARTA with your phone, being able to buy things with your phone, and leaving everything else essentially behind. And that day is coming fast. And we hope that it's going to happen best here in the United States with the efforts that we're doing.
When you've been faced with a project that was failing or a project that failed, what was your course of action?
Well, I try not to be associated with failures. I try to catch them before they fail. But I'll tell you that one of the biggest learnings I had, and this was a big aha happened to me early in my career, and it may not have a direct application to the work you do, but I hope you find it insightful, is when I got to a new job, I was actually out doing what people do now. They call it undercover boss, but I like to ride with technicians in trucks using the company uniform to find out what really was happening. And there was this big problem I found out by talking to the technician. And I said, well, I'll go I'll put somebody on it to help fix it. So I got the best supervisor that I had in that. I was new to the market. They give me the best one and most experienced one. I'm going to give you a special project to fix this process issue that we uncovered in the field. So technicians were losing all kinds of time because of this. So I gave it to this person, checked up on him 30 days later. He says, I can't do it. So it can't be done. What do you mean it can't be done? No, it's impossible to do. I said, okay, if you believe it's impossible to do, then I need to get another person. So I got this young lady, just a recent college graduate, and I said, Patrice, take a look at this, see if you can help me out with this. 2 weeks, she comes back and says, I think I solved it. See, she didn't know that she couldn't do it. So this person was my best supervisor with all these years of experience. And what he had done is he had built a set of rules in his head of why it couldn't be done. The problem was that the situation changed since he last looked at it. And so he was believing in something that was no longer true. And that is deadly. Believing in something that is no longer true is deadly for success. It's deadly for any kind of things you do in life. And I find people often don't clean the closet on their own internal ideas about how the world works, how things work. And you go and you approach it thinking it was yesterday's situation when all of a sudden the impossible becomes possible because there's something new. And almost every time that I have had a failure has been because somebody in their mind decided this can't be done. And the only choice then, quite frankly, is you gotta replace them. You don't throw them away. You just, coach them. But you gotta put somebody else there that believes they can get the job done or has an open mind to look at new ideas and opportunities and doesn't see a problem, sees an opportunity. Goes back to some of the comments. That to me, it just absolutely blew me away. Actually, the simplest example I can give you happened to me in Atlanta here when I first got to Atlanta, became CEO of AT&T Mobility. Somebody complained of coverage in a particular area. They called me and I said, well, looks like there's a dead spot there. I sent an engineer out to that spot. And the guy says, I don't need to go out there. What do you mean? Oh no, we know that's a bad spot. There's no place for a cell site. The community absolutely refuses to allow us to put a cell site there. So it can't be done. What do you think I did? I said, okay, thank you. I'm going to get somebody else. Get me somebody from out of that area. So I got somebody else. I sent him out there. He comes back. Oh yeah, they're building a water tower over there. I think we can put it on top of the water tower. Or it didn't exist there before. This guy, he was years ago. They had built something new that we could attach to, and he missed it. He didn't even want to think about it because he had, in his eyes, he looked at this before and he knew it. I mean, he's not a bad person. He just got a mental block. And that's what I think we often don't do. I call it, you have to unlearn. You have to unlearn the things that are no longer true. You have to unlearn and relearn. If you don't learn totally, then you go blank, so you got to relearn. You got to relearn and get the new things so you can take full advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you foresee as some of the greatest challenges for AT&T growing in the international market?
Well, international is a very, very tough market. We've tried to get into different places, but in many of these places, the properties are very high priced. In some cases, they really don't want American-based companies. China is one of them. They have 3 wireless companies controlled by the government, very tight. You may be able to buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%, but you can never control, so you have a huge investment, and you just can't really manage the company. So we have opted not to do that, but we follow multinationals overseas who are in hundreds of countries in selected operations following big multinationals. But until the wireless business becomes a little less pricey, we're not going to go into international markets because they're simply too pricey right now.
How do you ensure that your vision is carried out throughout your organization?
Communicate, communicate, communicate. You can't communicate enough. As much as you think you do it, it's never, ever enough. The good thing is technology can help. I'm a big proponent of webcasts. and getting in front of people in crowds like this, but then webcasting it and doing it in a way where we can actually replay it at the person's convenience on their own time. So if you can't watch it immediately, you can get a chance to watch it anytime. And that, to me, has been very, very successful. In fact, I was telling some people at the table that I like to do mystery shopping. And now the stores make me out. They know as soon as I set foot in, we know who you are, Mr. De La Vega. How can I help you? I tried that in New York recently. It just took them about 30 seconds, and I wasn't even with a coat and tie. So the message, at least, they heard it. And then you gotta always check to see, did they get it? Are they doing the right thing? Message is a two-way street. Transmit, and you gotta receive.
So we've got two more. We had a bunch of questions related to the AT&T and T-Mobile merger. I'll just let you decide if you want to comment or not.
I can't comment on those, so let's pass on those.
All right. So the next one was, what top 3 books would you recommend that every human being read? And they're going to give you a pass on having to say that the Bible is number 1.
Well, okay, that's a good pass. You know, I like Jim Collins' Good to Great. I really like those kind of books. I'm reading right now one that I like a lot. It's called Leading with Honor. It's not published yet. It's by Leon Ellis, a former prisoner of war. And he talks about what it takes to lead in that environment. That's the book that I quoted you. Let's see, what else? What other good one would be lately? Those are probably the top 2 in my mind. I always like books that are also basic in terms of how one thinks. And I love The Pyramid Principle by Barbara Minto. She's a former McKinsey consultant. And she talks about using the pyramid principle as a way to organize your ideas and your thoughts, and it helps you to become a better communicator. So I always like her, and I shall keep that book in my bookcase. But lots of good books out there. We don't certainly lack for those.
Well, that wraps up the questions on the cards, and I don't know where we are time-wise.
You want to take some questions from the audience?
So we could take some live questions if anyone has one. I'm going to hand the mic to Karen if you want to. All right, you have another one? Okay, great.
Any questions?
There's a few back there, and there's one up here. Okay.
There was a great story in your book about a young engineer in a telephone booth with a critical moment in time. When you step back and look at that moment, whose voice did you hear speaking to you about doing the right thing?
You know, I don't know whose voice I was listening to. I've been fortunate at certain critical times in my life for somebody to have pointed me the right way. The story he's referring to was when I first became an engineer. One of the jobs that AT&T made you do was to check on phone booths to see that they were working properly. You're supposed to go check the booth, check the yellow pages, put a coin in and test it to see that it was placing outgoing calls. Most of you don't use base stations anymore because you use cell phones. But in those days, that's one of the things that they made us do as management employees. I put the coin in after being there the first week, and all this money came coming out. I mean, I'm a recent college graduate. I'm still paying off my loans, and I go, this is a great... It was just like if you hit the 3 bananas in Vegas, right? And I don't know what voice it came, but I felt this is not mine. This is not right. I shouldn't have this. And I probably credit the family that took care of me, of showing me in those 10 to 14 age brackets what the right path. I'd returned every one of those coins to my boss at the time.
I was thinking grandmama.
No. In this case, I think grandma was about education, but I think watching the Baez family struggle and watching every penny and doing the right things had a huge influence on me. And so I returned every one of those coins. It turned out they were marked. They were set up there to find out if the coin collectors were cheating and keeping some of the coins. So had I kept any of those coins, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. I would have been fired my first week on the job. That's why you see integrity at the bottom of that pyramid. I talked to you first. He made a hell of an impression on me. Always do the right thing, no matter if people are not looking. Yeah, there's.
Yeah, I just had one question. Given that it's September 12th, what are some of the ways that AT&T was impacted or has changed their business over the past 10 years since 9/11?
You know, 9/11 was a huge awakening for all of us, seeing the disaster that took place, human and otherwise. You know, Ericsson is sitting here. We place an awful lot of emphasis on disaster recovery, have regular exercises. We probably doubled or tripled the capacity that we have with mobile switching centers, mobile cell sites on wheels, and we practice it regularly, probably more so than ever before, trying to anticipate what you could do during a disaster. So just having dedicated teams with dedicated equipment and practicing and trialing things. We still do it as a management team, where we have paper exercises and we go, well, what happens if there's a smart bomb somewhere or there's anthrax in this building? And we go through those kinds of scenarios, just trying to simulate what we could do. And it's hard to prepare for that, seriously, because you can't anticipate, but you can prepare yourself to understand how you'd have to react. I myself probably have faced not things like 911, but hurricanes, fires, tornadoes, and in a different way, they're just as destructive. And my experience is, it's hard to predict what Mother Nature's going to do, but if you have a plan, you have a chance at succeeding. And I'll give you a real quick. Do we have time for a real quick story on this?
Yes.
This is a classic about planning. When I moved back to South Florida from Atlanta, I've moved 13 times. One of those times I went back to run the operations where I grew up, which is Miami and Dade County, home of the Hurricanes, right? Miami Hurricanes. The team carries that name for a reason. And I told them we were going to be super prepared if and when we got hit by a hurricane. I got on the job in December, so we had a handbook for every one of my direct reports and we practiced what we would do when the hurricane was 48 hours away, 24 hours away, what we would have to do. Well, there was this little hurricane called Andrew that started menacing South Florida. And if you've ever seen the track of Hurricane Andrew was going up northeast. And once hurricanes cross the 25th parallel, they never hit Miami because they don't turn backwards. So if they cross the 25th parallel, we were home free. This thing was just this close to the 25th parallel when my team got together on a Friday night to decide whether we would move our trucks inland, because if it was going to hit us, we'd have to move them on Saturday. We couldn't wait, or that we would lose all of our trucks through flooding. Several of the other divisions looked at that and said, nah, it's not going to hit us. We looked at it and said, the team collectively said, the plan says to move the trucks, so we mobilized everybody and moved the trucks. The next day, Andrew took a 90-degree turn and hit us directly at 155 miles an hour. Only trucks that survived that one intact were our division. We had planned it so well that we had the name of every Florida Power and Light supervisor who was responsible for putting power to our network. We had their name, we had their pager, we had their home number, and I told my supervisors, take them out to lunch. Seriously, before the hurricane, I want you to get to know these people so that when we have a crisis, they can help us. Well, we had a crisis, and guess what? They didn't help us. Best plans, right? We had every contact, so we started paging the supervisor when we had our central office, which was the ladder tandem switched all the calls in Miami, had a generator that was their backup system for power, and the generator started overheating. Once the generator overheats, we had 2 hours before we would lose power. If you lose power, once the switch loses power, you're dead. It's the worst thing that can happen to you if you're a telecom professional. So, sure enough, the power goes out, the generator goes out, the backup plan to the backup plan fails. And now we have a couple of hours, so we're paging this supervisor, and he's not returning the calls. Now, this is where you have to adapt the plan, right? So I said, give me the book. I looked there. I got his home number. So I looked at the number, and I said, I'm going to call his home. His wife answered. After I explained to her who I was and the predicament we were in, I said, ma'am, I have to ask you one question. Do you get along good with your husband? Because if you get along good with your husband, I need you to page him, and he'll call you back, and then you tell him to call me, or all of South Florida is without telephone service tomorrow. She laughed, and she says, yeah, I got along really good with him. She calls him. He returns the call she tells him to call me. He calls me, and he got us back in an hour. That's talking about having a plan, but having to adjust. I'll never forget that situation, but it's that kind of planning that is needed, and then you know that Mother Nature will do something that will throw an obstacle in your way. Don't get frustrated. Just keep your wits about you and think of a way out of it.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Yeah, some have said that in life, sometimes a setback is a setup for a comeback. So could you tell us about one time you really screwed up and had to come back from that?
Yeah, I can tell you about a really good one and a really good comeback. How about that? That's a great one to close by. You know, a lot of people today talk about the success of the iPhone. But I want to tell you about the screw up before the iPhone. Do any of you remember the rocker? You own one? That's the problem. Only one guy bought it. Thank you. Thank you. The rocker was actually not a bad phone. It was the first phone that had iTunes music built in. So I went out to Cupertino with Steve Jobs and the head of Motorola, and we built this big show, and we rolled out the advertising. Some of the best advertising we have ever done. Couldn't sell the darn things. It just couldn't sell them. So you know what? We said, okay, we'll just kill that product and go on to the next. But that product allowed me to meet Steve Jobs. That product allowed Steve Jobs to meet me and to know that he could work with AT&T. So he called back 6 months later and says, hey, I'm ready to build a better phone. Will you guys work with us? We did, and the rest is history. So that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you.